Hello, all. Welcome back. My name is Alexis. Man, today I was thinking a lot about the last couple years of my life, including this year to come, and I really wanted to talk about the idea of releasing yourself, or I think what I might make the title is something like "Unshackling Yourself from Other People's Fears." We'll see, but just the idea of letting go of other people's fears so that you can live the life that you want to live. You can make decisions that work for you rather than, work for the insecurities and fears of people who, while their intentions might be good, it just, it's for them and not necessarily for you. So, it's something that I was thinking about as I was, doing some retrospection on the last year, year and a half, almost 2 years of my life. Is there were several times when, I was thinking about, for instance, moving. And if you haven't seen any of my other videos, which I'm assuming you haven't, for some context, I moved from California to the East Coast in May of 2024. Yeah, May of 2024. This time has flown by, y'all. Um, and when I did that, there was quite a bit of change, obviously, with, moving across the country, but I moved without any family. I had a couple friends here, but it's not like, people that I had known for years. Um, and I also completely changed my career. So there was a lot from living on my own for the first time, to being in a new place with new challenges, not just, the challenge of figuring out how to manage your finances when you're paying rent and all these other bills and, social life and that sort of thing, but even just the challenge of like being with yourself for external challenges like the weather here, the natural disasters that happen here where we're used to preparing for earthquakes in California. Now here I have to prepare for like blizzards and snow and ice storms, which thankfully don't happen too often, but life in the world just happens the way it happens. But yeah, so I made the decision to do that, and immediately when I was like, hey, yeah, this is what I want to do, there were a lot of well-meaning people that really love and care about me. Like, I don't think anyone's intention was to try to stifle me or anything like that. It really was just the fear of the unknown for them, for me, having limited experience in these places and without people that I had established, like long standing established relationships with, or familiar relationships and whatnot. And yeah, I had to take a lot of time to pray about it, to do research, to really work through the logistics of that, because I don't know, I was always raised, maybe we won't get too deep into that. But I will say I was always raised to like follow what older people tell you, which I think a lot of us were. There's always the respect your elders, and you don't want to make unnecessary mistakes if someone else has already lived through something and other people know more than you, and that's just a common thing, right? But as you get older, as I have gotten older, there's so much freedom in being able to, I'm sorry, I thought that was a spider. It's not. It's like the little end of my, like the lace that goes on my shoe. Anyway, um there's a lot of freedom and fear, honestly, that goes with, or that comes with going against the grain when you're used to following directions, when you're used to, immediately heeding the advice of someone else, even if they don't have the experience of, like, the exact experience that you're about to embark on, right? Like, they've never been on the exact same journey. And another example is like when I started solo traveling, there was so much pushback. There was so much pushback. Like, actually reminded of this when I was watching one of my favorite creators videos. Her name is Glow Atonmo, and she mentioned that when she would go to certain places, or she would tell her family that she would go to certain places, she would immediately get like every article from like the last 10 years of what woman had visited the area and died, or like what tourists went and they were kidnapped, or some American went to whatever country and they were stabbed and the locals treated them so poorly and they faced all sorts of racism. Like, it's always immediately the worst possible thing, and because the worst possible thing happened to someone else, that's why you shouldn't do it, right? Like, always err on the side of caution. And that's so relatable, because while I wouldn't get like articles sent to me, it would always be excuse me, it would always be like, oh my gosh, there was a war there 30 years ago. I've heard of unexploded bombs being in such and such a place. I remember recommending Bosnia and Herzegovina for one of our like annual family trips, and that was in the immediate thing was like, there was a war there, however long ago, and it's dangerous, and do black people even go there, and does it. And it was we ended up not going on that trip, planning on going this year. So let's pray that that happens. But I even remember like going to Singapore for the first time, and immediately it was like the for black folks, you've probably heard this wherever the place is, they don't play in insert country. They don't play in Singapore. Hey guys, I'm going to Morocco. They don't play in Morocco. I'm going to France. They don't play in France. Yeah, yes, okay. It was always some like locked up abroad story that, like, they cane people over there. They don't have the, they don't you don't have the same rights in jail. Don't do anything. um but I had to learn to get past those fears of other people, because other people's fears were only ever going to hold me back. And in a similar way to when I stopped waiting on other people's finances, other people's PTO, other people's availability, other people's circumstances to start traveling, because I knew that I was going to go, or I was going to be waiting on someone else for the rest of my life. And I just didn't want to do that. So now we've veered away from the point, because I was talking about moving to the East Coast. We'll circle back, I promise. Um, so I just think that really taking the time, and this is not to be, I'm not encouraging anyone to be uh what's the word, impulsive, but like being impulsive without being safe. That's obviously important. I don't want anyone to go overseas and put themselves in a dangerous situation. But it's really important to take what you can from what other people are saying, take what you can from other people's fears, and tempering it appropriately with other information from different sources. And now I look back at it, like, if I See, I said look back at it. Now I'm like, okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Um, Now when I look back at that time, I'm so grateful that like I took the advice that I could, the stuff that was useful, um, was cautious in that okay, look up the local scams, look up precautions, look up, all that stuff. And I just went. And now I'm like, I don't know, I'm not going to count right now, but now I've been to multiple countries on my own that I never would have had the opportunity to go to if I had kept myself bound by fears that weren't even mine. And even looking at my life since I've moved to the East Coast, told y'all we were coming back. Now looking at my life, now that I've moved to the East Coast, it's like there are so many people that I've met that I'm incredibly grateful for. So many experiences that I had that I don't think I would have had if I, for instance, took the advice and moved closer to home. If I had taken the advice to move to one of the locations that like I already had family in, I don't think I would be as happy. I don't think I would be getting to a place where I really, really feel like I'm getting back to myself if I had heard the things that other people were saying and I let that keep me in the place that I was. And I mean that physically, I mean that mentally, I mean that emotionally, I mean that when it comes to traveling, I mean that career wise, even changing careers, it was like was like, you have this stable job. You've been doing it for 10 years. Please excuse me, I have an eyelash on my eye. You've been doing it for 10 years. There's a level of stability um and flexibility. Why would you throw that away to do something that you have zero experience in? That's a lot more unstable. Like tech and corporate, there's no unions here. There's it is at will. I could log into my laptop tomorrow and be locked out. But I also think about it like as I've worked this job, there are so many benefits that like I couldn't have dreamed would ever be a reality for me. um like working from home, I never thought that I would be able to wake up and walk to my living room. Well, not here. This is a studio, but in my previous place, walk to my living room and sit down at my desk and that's how I would work for the day. Um I never would have thought that I would be able to take my laptop with me to Amsterdam and sorry, got a text message, got the little notification. I'm like, what is happening? Um, would have been able to take my laptop to the Netherlands and work for a week, just solo, just living life in the Netherlands. That's never something I envisioned myself being able to do. Um, I never thought I would have bosses that I like really, really liked. Had bosses that were okay, honestly. Actually bosses that helped me with my career, but like bosses that aren't like really have no interest in micromanaging you. Um yeah, having the ability to pick up and like, okay, if I don't feel like being in my apartment, I can work from a cafe, I can work with friends and, co-work with people. Uh yeah, and there's one more point. Oh, okay. This is a big point, and I will get into it deeper in another video because I really think I've mastered this particular thing, and it's calculated risk taking. I think a lot of us, when you think of releasing yourself from someone else's fears, it can almost feel reckless. That was the word I was thinking about earlier too. Um recklessly doing things impulsively. Maybe that wasn't the word I was thinking of. Anyway, you might think of doing things recklessly, but all of my decisions have been a calculated risk. And it's not even that like all of them have worked out, but I do think that calculated risk taking is a skill that all of us should build. Because risk taking in general can be very valuable to a degree. Um, it it can be so freeing to hear, people say something about a decision you're going to make. Ingest that information, take external sources, ingest that information, calculate the risk, realize that there is a very real risk, and still do the thing, having taken the proper precautions, having thought about it deeply enough to know that even though it's a risk, a lot of the uncertainty, a lot of the um in depending on what we're talking about, fragility, a lot of the I don't want to keep using the word risk, but a lot of the risk has kind of been mitigated. So that's another thing that I would encourage all of you to do is get better at calculated risk taking, because even now, while my loved ones don't always agree with the decisions I make, they know that I've done the proper amount of research. They know that when I go somewhere on my own, I've looked at the different neighborhoods and where I probably shouldn't be walking alone at night. They know that if I move into a different career, I've spoken to people that are working in that role, that I've done the appropriate amount of research on the company that I've joined, that when I move across the country, I've done the appropriate amount of prayer and thought and meditation, and looked up the different neighborhoods and the safety and all of the things that I need to in order to have the highest possible chance of success. And so even though they still have concerns, even though they still might not want me to do it, there are a lot fewer there's a lot fewer objections, because they know that I've calculated the cost, that I've calculated the risk, and after calculating the risk, I've still decided that it's something that I want to do. um so yeah, the message for today is to take a minute to think about what areas of your life um you might be being held back by the fear of others. Calculate the risk and maybe unshackle yourself. Release yourself from other people's fears so that you can do something that you really want to do. You can reach a goal that might seem weird to the people around you, that you can go to a country that's like most people might not know exists or can't spell or whatever. um Maybe start an unconventional career and people are like, you're you're going to be a starving artist, you're going to be a content creator, you're going to whatever it is. There could be so much beauty on the other side of you overcoming somebody else's fears that weren't even really yours to begin with. So yeah. um I think that's it. I think that's the message. So everyone have a good day. One of these days I have to show like my recording setup, because As you guys have seen, I've been all over this house, and today my phone is stacked on two shoe boxes and leaned up against a candle. Um, yeah. Anyway, I just think it's funny. Everyone have a good day. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. And if you want to keep watching me yap every day, because that's how often I'm posting, the goal is at least 60 days. But I mean, the way I can yap, y'all, we might make it to a whole year. I'm also interested if you guys have ideas for things you want me to talk about. I think I have a pretty solid list so far, but obviously happy to talk about things that people might actually want to hear me yap about rather than me just waking up and deciding what to yap about. So feel free if you want to hear something different to let me know in the comments. Yeah. Anyway, have a good day, y'all. Bye.